President-elect Obama, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Very nice to have you with us. As we saw in the opening, the world has gotten considerably worse since your election. There is no evidence that it's cause and effect. You should be happy to know. But nonetheless, we now are officially in a recession. It's around the world, and most analysts think it's going to get worse before it gets better. 67 years ago this day, one of your predecessors, Franklin Roosevelt, faced Pearl Harbor.
Right.
What are the differences between his challenges and the ones that you face?
Well, first of all, I think it's important for us to remember that as tough as times are right now, they're nothing compared to what my grandparents went through, what the greatest generation went through. At this point, you already had 25-30% unemployment across the country. And we didn't have many of the social safety nets that emerged out of the New Deal. So there's no doubt that Franklin Roosevelt had to recreate an entire economic structure that had entirely collapsed. And we've got some strengths that he didn't have. But look, if you look at the unemployment numbers that came out yesterday, if you think about almost 2 million jobs lost so far, if you think about the fragility of the financial system and the fact that it is now a global financial system, so that what happens in Thailand or Russia can have an impact here, and obviously what happens on Wall Street has an impact worldwide. When you think about the structural problems that we already had in the economy before the financial crisis, this is a big problem, and it's going to get worse. And one of the things that I'm constantly mindful of are all the people I met during the campaign who were already struggling before things got worse. Mothers and fathers who were working hard every day but didn't have health care, couldn't figure out how to send their kids to college. Now they're looking at pink slips, jobs being shipped overseas that devastate entire towns. And that's why my number one priority coming in is making sure that we've got an economic recovery plan that is equal to the task.
Here's what you had to say a short time ago to the National Conference of Governors. It was kind of a reality check for them to put it in some kind of context. Let's share that with our audience now if we can.
We're going to have to make hard choices like the ones that you're making right now in your state capitals. We're going to have to make in Washington. And we are not, as a nation, going to be able to just keep on printing money. So at some point, we're also going to have to make some long-term decisions in terms of fiscal responsibility. And not all of those choices are going to be popular.
On this program about a year ago, you said being a president is 90% circumstances and about 10% agenda. Right. The circumstances now are, as you say, very unpopular in terms of the decisions that have to be made. Which are the most unpopular ones that the country is going to have to deal with?
Well, fortunately, as tough as times are right now, and things are going to get worse before they get better, there is a convergence between circumstances and agenda. The key for us is making sure that we jumpstart that economy in a way that doesn't just deal with the short term, doesn't just create jobs immediately, but also puts us on a glide path for long-term sustainable economic growth. And that's why I spoke in my radio address on Saturday about the importance of investing in the largest infrastructure program in roads and bridges and other traditional infrastructure since the building of the federal highway system in the 1950s. Rebuilding our schools and making sure that they are energy efficient. Making sure that we're investing in electronic medical records and other technologies that can drive down healthcare costs. All those things are not only immediate part of an immediate stimulus package to the economy, but they're also down payments on the kind of long-term sustainable growth that we need.
To give an indication of how quickly things change now at warp speed, when you and I last saw each other 6 weeks ago, I think it was, in Nashville, when I asked you your priorities, you said health care, energy, and education would be your top three priorities. You didn't anticipate at that time that you would have to outline this kind of a stimulus program. The real question in the stimulus program that you have just described and as you shared with the American audience in your radio address is, how quickly will it mean jobs out there across America, and how much is it going to cost, and who's going to pay for it?
Well, I think we can get a lot of work done fast. When I met with the governors, all of them have projects that are shovel-ready. that are going to require us to get the money out the door, but they've already lined up the projects and they can make them work. And now we're going to have to prioritize it and do it not in the old traditional politics first way. What we need to do is examine what are the projects where we're going to get the most bang for the buck. How are we going to make sure taxpayers are protected? The days of just pork coming out of Congress as a strategy, those days are over. How much it's going to cost? My economic team is examining that right now. And one of the things I'm very pleased with is how fast we've gotten a first-rate economic team in place, the fastest in modern history. They are busy working, crunching the numbers, looking at the macroeconomic data to make a determination as to what the size and the scope of the economic recovery plan needs to be, but it is going to be substantial. One last point I want to make on this is that we are inheriting an enormous budget deficit. Some estimates over $1 trillion. That's before we do anything. And so we understand that we've got to provide a blood infusion to the patient right now to make sure that the patient is stabilized. And that means that we can't worry short term about the deficit. We've got to make sure that the economic stimulus plan is large enough to get the economy moving.